Man, I'm so excited to hear about your story. But before we get into all that, where are you at the moment? You in Poland?
Yeah, I'm at current time in Poland. I actually live like for the past 21 years in London, in United Kingdom, but currently I was planning actually to come to Poland just for 1 week, but my mother didn't let me come back to United Kingdom because I haven't been in Poland like since 2017. And I have this huge challenge in front of me, so I heard a lot of complaints from the family, so I decided to train in Poland. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to stay for one month. Now it's coming to 2 months. That's how it is with the family. They don't want to let me go.
Your mum sounds like my mum.
Yeah, all moms are the same.
It's true.
But there is a little issue here, and I did have some conversation with her, and probably the same with yours. That, my plate is always full, and I cannot eat that much.
That's one thing mums are very good for. It's true. Mums are the same because whenever I go down to my mum's house, there's a plate full of food as well. But which part of London were you living in when you were there? Because my wife and I lived in a little place called Tufnell Park, right near Camden Town for 2 years.
I was working in a Camden town for quite long, and I was living in a Primrose Hill, which is quite close to, well, it's just next to the Camden town.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the last time I was living a bit more north in Golders Green. So yeah, it's actually that area.
Yeah, beautiful, man. And your accent is Polish originally?
Um, I mean, a lot of people confuse me. Sometimes people say Italian, sometimes says French, but I think it must be definitely Polish because I was born in Poland and I was living in Poland for 21 years. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. So it rubs off on you after a little while.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Dude, I'm excited to talk about your whole story, your adventures, your approach to running, everything that we'd sort of discussed in the lead up to this podcast, because it's such a fascinating story. And I often say to people that I love having people like you on the show, because a lot of this podcast is targeted at running and running based sports, and we come in with very practical steps on, okay, like how can we improve our distance running. And what I like about your story is
Yeah.
not only is the mindfulness element going to help that, but the way in which you're demonstrating your point is just incredible. And obviously, I would do my best to offer an overview as to what it is that you're doing and how you found your way into the sport of
Yeah.
running. But I thought what would be way better than me trying to do the introduction is handing the ball to you and allowing you to give us a bit of an overview and sort of paint the picture of how you got to where you are now with your running, because it's an amazing story.
Sure. So I started running like 18, maybe 20 years ago, but for the first 15, maybe 16 years, I was just running like half an hour twice a week just to clear my mind, after work or before the work. So it was nothing special, and usually I was quite tired after that half an hour. And then in 2016, my life's changed a lot. I was going through some really difficult time, and I did have really needs to improve my mental health, to just feel better, to not be so much stress and don't feel so much anxieties. And I decided to do something with myself. In late December 2015, I go for 1 month to Asia, just to think about myself. I just spent 1 month on the beach just with the books. I met few people, and that was actually like a shake-up time for me, because I realized that all my anxieties, stresses, overwhelms, which I did have for nearly 40 years in my life, I don't actually need to have them. It was quite normal for me because I was living in a society when everyone was saying this is how the life is. We have stresses, we have anxieties, we have overwhelms, and it's never ending. But back there in 2016 and late 2015, I realized after meeting a few people that no, it's not like this. I don't have to actually live that way. I don't need to feel the way how I was feeling for the most of my life. And when I come back to London after a month, I just started changing my life. I didn't know what to do yet, how to improve my mental health and the overall well-being. But I started making a small changes, and I started running much more. I started running like 5-6 times per week, um, more than an hour a day. Then in March 2018, so 2 years later, I decided to start training for my first big challenge, but I didn't know yet for what I will be training. I just increased my training. Then in November 2018, there was a guy, Ross, who finished swim around the Great Britain. He spent like 158 days in the sea. And I said to myself, gosh, if that guy can swim, stay in the sea, in the water for nearly 200 days, I can do some crazy stuff with running. And then I increased running even more. And then in April 2019, I started running my first big challenge to make 5 million steps in 100 days. I managed in 101 days. I was one day late. For me, running was never about that physical part. For me, I was always interested in mental health. I was always interested how I can use any form of exercises, and especially running, because that was actually the only sport I was ever doing. How I can use it to improve mental health and to make like a really stable and lasting changes in my life. And after completed 5 million steps, I knew that I can train for wherever I want in life. It was probably, if I would know how hard it will be, I would never start it. But once I started, I wanted to finish, because I said to people I would do it. So I wanted to finish.
So how
Then
many
when I
kilometers? How many kilometers or
Oh,
miles
that
is
was
5
that was
million
actually
steps?
yeah, that was actually multi-sport. So what I was doing, I fly to Asia, and I was going from one island to another island, from one country to another country, and I was cycling from one place to another place. Then I was running in this place for the next few days to see all the beautiful things. And then I was going on a bike, and I was cycling to another place and doing again the same. And my activity watch was calculating the steps. So I did something nearly 6,000 kilometers altogether. But I started from making 25,000 steps in the first days, and I ended up by making over 100,000 steps in a day. The busiest day for me was 107,000 steps. It took me something over 14 hours. I really remember this day because I was on the first floor. It was a Cebu island in Philippines, and I was on the first floor in a little room. And I remember I finished after the midnight, and I did this 107,000 steps because on this month I wanted to complete 2 million steps. And in the morning it was 107,000 steps missing. So I said, I have to try to do it. And I finished after the midnight, and I was holding the rail and, slowly lifting up the one leg to put on the step, and then another leg to put on the step, because my legs was so tired that I couldn't get on the first floor. But the next morning was glorious. I was the winner.
You were the winner. It's
I
interesting.
was the winner.
I was going to ask you what the reason for you increasing the distance so much from day one was, saying you started with 25,000. Was that because it took you a little while for your body to become conditioned and accustomed to the fact that you were just going to be running long days for a long time? Because my wife and I, we did the Camino de Santiago trail in 2017, and on a much smaller scale than what you're talking about. I remember the first couple of days we were backpacking. We had, I think it was 15 kilometers. So what's that? About 10 miles roughly that we were walking. And the first couple of days we were like, oh my goodness, I thought we were fit, but we couldn't bend down. We couldn't squat. Our legs were so sore. And then like like it sounds like you did, we noticed that from about day 3 or 4, our body was like, okay, I understand what's going on. I better adjust.
Yeah, exactly. Plus I never did any challenges at all before. So actually the first 2 or 3 weeks, it was really heavy for me. And when I started increasing, I was actually doing, before I started running this challenge, I was actually doing about 25 to 40,000 steps a day in London already. And then when I get I started from Indonesia, from Bali. When I get there, I started from 25,000 and increasing up. And it was really hard because the climate was completely different, the time zone was completely different. So I couldn't do it at the beginning, that 40,000 steps. And then the pain in all the muscles all around the body, in the places when I didn't even know I have a muscles there. It was terrible at the beginning, but I just kept pushing. And I calculated that when I was calculating this challenge, I calculated that, okay, I'm already doing 40,000 steps a day. Um, so if I divide 5 million steps on 100 days, it's like 50,000 steps. So it should be manageable. But I calculated 100 days in a row without a break. That was the mistake first. Another thing, that I get bored with one place because I go to small islands, and I did have to move to another place that was like a day traveling. So I lost a day of for exercises. And then at the end of the challenge was really heavy because I did have to push to make more steps than which I lost before.
Yeah.
And but I did it eventually 1 day later, but it's not like I'm, criticizing myself
Yeah, it's still
for being
impressive.
1 day. Yeah. And then 3 weeks later, I started running 11,000 kilometers. I moved to Hanoi in Vietnam. The plan was to run from Hanoi to Denpasar in Bali through the ocean coast. I ran half of the distance, 5,500 kilometers, and the COVID happened. So I couldn't continue running. I managed to escape from Sumatra and Malaysia 4 hours before the borders was shut down for lockdown. I go to Sumatra in Indonesia, where I supposed to run through Sumatra, Java, and Bali, but it was impossible because of COVID. The Indonesia was never under the full lockdown, but you cannot move even from one village to another. So I get stuck in a small village next to the jungle. People was attacking me at the beginning because they thought I brought the COVID to them. And then, after 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, it was really hard because I couldn't move from the hotel room. And then I realized that I get stuck here for longer. It was March 2020, and no one knows what's going on with COVID. So I decided that I have to continue my challenge. I choose one road through the jungle and through the village. There was two police officers speaking a bit in English, so they were informing people in the village that I'm okay, I'm not sick.
Mhm.
And I was running, waving to all the people around, smiling. Kids eventually started running after me, and the people accepted me in the village.
I was
So
going to ask, that's an awkward place to be stuck
yeah,
when you're in a small village and the community believes you're the one who brought COVID to them. So when you
yeah.
say, were they attacking you, like yelling at you, or physically
No,
attacking
no,
you?
they were trying to beat me. They were stopping on the bikes, and there was no way I can get out of the room after the darkness, and it was pretty much challenging to go to the shop. They were trying to pushing me and shouting on me, and them saying some internationally English words and showing some fingers to me. So it was a bit hard at the beginning, but after 2 3 weeks they realized, okay, it's all fine,
Uh-huh.
and they accepted me, and they were welcomed me, and it was really nice. I mean, the Indonesian people, they're extremely nice people, but it
Mm.
was hard time for everyone and hard to understand what is happening
It's so interesting. It's
in the
crazy to
world.
hear that there's a community that actually believes that you were the one that brought it into them. Like, what was it about you? Was it just you were sort of you were sort of just someone that they could point the finger to? Because I mean, it was pretty big news at that stage.
Yeah.
But was it a village with did it have internet and television and things? Were they able to see that?
Yeah, they did, and but you know, it's hard to explain. They do have a TV and internet, everything, but it's like 100 years ago,
Mm.
with the mentality. And when I go on the road and what I actually seen in the village, etc. So
Mhm.
it was what it was, but eventually they've been really very nice to me, and I stayed there actually for 6 months altogether in the same village. And I divided the remaining distance, 5,500 kilometers, on 268 half marathons, and I was running through the same road, 2 to 5 half marathons daily, and I eventually completed the entire challenge, 11,000 kilometers, and I back, winner again,
What did
winner
you
for
say?
myself.
You were doing from 2 to 5 half marathons each day.
Yes, 2 to 5 half marathons each day
Oh
I was
my
doing.
goodness, man.
It,
That's
it was hard some of the days, but
incredible.
the beauty of what I was doing is that along the way of those two big challenges, I discovered the state of flow. And I get really curious. It happened to me accidentally because I was afraid of the snakes. When I was a little kid, I go through some childhood traumas, and I was always dwelling on the past, worrying about the future. I was never actually in the present moment awareness. I was really struggling with focusing on one thing at a time for a longer period. And when I was running through Asia, the snakes was absolutely everywhere. And a few times I almost stepped on a snake. So I couldn't dwell on the past, worrying about the future, because I did have to focus on what I have in front of me, on when I'm putting my feet. So this is what I was doing. And when I was doing this, I was actually practicing mindful running and active meditation. And at some point, I started running at crazy distances, 70, 80, 90 kilometers, 100 kilometers. I mean, it was already a few years of training. But the crazy thing was that I was repeating this one day, second day, third day, second week. And it was like kind of the effortless. Like I did it for the few hours. I come back to the hotel room, and after 1 hour break, resting, taking shower, I could open the laptop and I was able to work for the next few hours and be focused. And that was something absolutely, something what I didn't experience in my life ever before. So I was really curious what the hell is happening to me. And
It's
I started, yeah.
no, sorry, go on.
I started searching the internet, and I discovered that I'm getting into the state of flow. And I didn't even know that name before. So I started learning how, why, what is creating this. And I started creating the program. I started thinking how I can do it purposefully, how I can create those conditions, how I can remove flow blockers. And I didn't have a plenty of time in Asia to do it, because I was all the time on my own. There was no crazy runner to run with me that distance. So I didn't have a plenty of time to think and to read and to learn. And that's what I did.
That's really good. It's interesting. Just going back to what you were saying about, I'm not sure what year you said it was, but when you spent a month in Asia on the beach with your books and just trying to find some answers to, the anxieties and stress and things that you had. And obviously it's such a universal thing. There's not one person that I speak to who hasn't had to deal with some element of, mental and physical and both distress. But it's always interesting to me how inspiring it is to find someone who actually found some tools to apply to their life to not only improve the physical state of their life, but the mental state of their life. And I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast about probably a year ago now, and he had that international singer from the 90s, or she was huge in the 90s, Jewel. I'm not sure if you've heard of Jewel.
No, I maybe, but I don't recognize the name now.
Sure. No, well, she's I like her. I've got a little soft spot for her. But she was really interesting because I thought she was coming on just as a singer, but she'd been through some crazy, mental challenges and things in her life. But one of the things that she said helped her get through was noticing when she's in a state of freedom and noticing when she's in a state of stress,
Yeah.
and started to write down which elements or what things she was doing. So if she was in a state of freedom, she'd go, I'm reading, I'm on the beach, I'm going for a walk, I'm exercising. And then also states of stress, like, I've been in front of the computer for 8 hours. I haven't socialized. I'm not eating well. And I thought, it's so interesting. So I started just putting together a little column of my freedom elements and my stress elements. And one of the big ones for me was exercise in general, but specifically running. And I always notice whenever I go through a difficult period, like back in about 2017 or 2018, I lost a couple of people really close to me. And was dealing with a lot of grief, and it was really unclear what it was that I was actually struggling with at the time, because I didn't realize how directly it had hit me. And the one area, the one space of my life that I felt like just offered me some level of, not some level, like almost back to full peace, full chill, was running. And the harder I ran, I felt the better I felt. So I always looked forward to getting into the running. But what I was curious about, because you said at that time you had started to do a little bit of running, had you noticed the same kind of pattern, that you felt good when you were exercising? Like, what was it that made you realize, okay, well, running's the area where I really want to not only pursue, but help put these practices in place to get me through it?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I discovered flow and before I discovered mindful running and active meditation and all these practices and how to actually do this purposefully, when I was still training in London before those challenges, I was simply going out for a run because it was releasing my tightness in the body. Because the issues with me was that when I was experiencing that childhood traumas, even if you don't think about this, and it's probably the same like you experienced traumas when you mentioned when you lost close to your people, that even if you don't think this later, a few years later, those experiences, the painful emotional experiences stays in our body, stays in our mind and in our emotions. But the mind can trick you, because we have between 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day. This is our biology. This is how our mind is working. So if your mind is subconsciously thinking about something, you might get on the autopilot, and the mind actually can trick you. If the mind can trick you, then your emotions can trick you also, because what you thought is usually turned into your emotional response. But if you learn to listen to your body, the body will never trick you, because every single emotion, every single thought is located somewhere in the body. Every single traumatic experience, no matter if we are kids, if we are teenagers, or if we are adult, all the negative and positive experiences, they are allocated somewhere in the body. And I actually, when I was training for the big challenges in London, I actually realized that when I'm moving, when I feel physical pain, when I feel that strong heaviness, when I feel that really heavy tightness in my body, and I go for a run, and I push it and I control my thoughts, that I'm starting purposefully thinking positive things, that actually my body is releasing that tightness, and I just feel better. So I was, searching around this, what I can do and how I can improve and how I can practice, thinking, and when I'm running, and what I need to think, and how this affecting my emotions, so that I become really curious about this areas, what is happening when I'm running.
Yeah, it's so interesting. This is an area I'm so fascinated about in so many different fields, not just running. I'm a really big fan of Wim Hof, the
Yeah,
Iceman, the breathing
yeah,
coach. And part of what I love about him is exactly what you're talking about here. It's amazing to hear about the capacity that we have to deal with discomfort and pain and uncertainty when you have the strategies in place. And I mean, there's endless. Like last night, I was watching everyone should check this out. It's called Lost Tapes. It's an 11-part Kelly Slater documentary, who's an American surfer. You probably heard of Kelly Slater, one of
yeah.
the best of all time. But I think he's pushing 50 now, or he might be 50, and he's still surfing against some of the best athletes in the world. And just hearing about the discomfort that he constantly puts himself through to be in the top physical shape to get out there on the board is mind blowing. Another one is Novak Djokovic after his most recent Wimbledon victory. These people, they've obviously got the ability to, not only the physical ability to perform at the level that they're at, but to be able to overcome the obstacles. Nick Kyrgios, after the Wimbledon final, the Australian player, said that he just felt Novak was so incredibly composed, even in really clutch moments. And I was doing a bit of a Google search last night, just trying to learn about, the mental side of Novak's performance. And I think he's quite a lot into the quantum world, like figuring out how it is that our thoughts dictate our emotions and vice versa, like what you were saying. But that was one area I was keen to unpack with you, to hear a little bit more about the strategies that you're using, because I think to the average person who hears about the distance and the ground that you're covering, it'd be hard to comprehend how you navigate that discomfort. So I'm not sure if you have specific keys or cues that you use, but I'd love to hear a little bit
Sure.
more about some of them, and figure out how, our audience of, we've got a range of listeners here, all the way from brand new runners to elite performers. And I know that this conversation, it spreads across all of those areas. All of us have mindset issues. So if that question made sense, I'd love to hear a little more
Yeah,
about
of
that.
course. The most important thing is to understand that what we do is painful. I mean, the exercises and running is painful. If we train to run the first 5 kilometers, I remember that was really painful when I started, from zero. Then when we increase to 10 kilometers, it's painful. If we increase to 20 kilometers, it's painful. At current time, now I have a little injury. I mean, I took a break to prevent the injury because it was the pain which was indicating the injury. But I'm running roughly now 4 times per week, 50 kilometers a day, in preparation for that big challenge to run the circumference of the Earth. And I'm increasing this to 75 kilometers a day. So, the first thing is that to understand that what we do is painful, but because we do this, we just want to do this. That's our decision. So, if we later feel the pain, we choose this pain. We put ourselves into this. So we need to find that then the way how to rewrite our mind, because our mind is, designed that way, that the mind is always finding first the negative things. But we can rewrite the mind to always looking for the positive things. So what I do when I'm increasing the distance, I never think about the entire distance. I don't think now that I'm preparing myself to run the 40,000 kilometers. I don't even think about the distance which I will run weekly, which is 300 kilometers. Not even the distance which I would run daily, 75 kilometers. I'm simply focusing on the nearest 15 minutes on 2.5 kilometers. And the trick here is that at the beginning, when you're trying to push your mind to focus only on 15 minutes, of course, your mind is saying to you, no, you are planning to run 50 kilometers, which is going to be painful. Then you're starting panicking. The mind is starting sending the signals to your body. And the mind is purposefully sending the signals to the parts of your body which you probably felt the pain before, and everything is, you starting feeling the pain in lots of different locations in your body. But then you have to say to yourself, I always treat my mind as a separate organ, which is not inside me, is something like next person to me. And I'm always saying to my mind have a name, is a mind. So I'm saying to my mind, no, mind, we are running 2.5 kilometers, 15 minutes, and later we will see, maybe we will run another 15 minutes, another 2.5 kilometers. And you trick your mind at the beginning. The mind is resisting this, but if you keep repeating this with compassion and without pushing, with understanding and acknowledging and acceptance, your mind is eventually clicking. And then you're really focusing on the nearest 15 minutes. What is happening after 15 minutes? You are reaching your goal. You have a goal for 15 minutes, you reach your goal, and then your brain releasing a bit of dopamine. So there is a reward drug, let's call it. And you are building this way interesting motivation. I'm also building the reward system. So after every 15 minutes, I'm rewarding myself somehow. I'm not racing. So people who racing, they have to think about those system. I'm not racing. For me, it's not really important how fast I will be running. For me, it's important to pass the distance. And so, after 15 minutes, I either take a little break, like 1 or 2 minutes. I either have a bit of water or whatever drink I have with me, or if I'm running, if it's the fourth 15 minutes and I need to eat something, then I have some snack. But I'm actually planning what is my reward. So then I'm giving this opportunity to my brain to release that dopamine, because I'm just coding the brain that is a time for the reward. So then then the brain is releasing the dopamine. And this is actually how I'm passing the entire distance, wherever it's 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers a day. I'm really running with a huge smile on my face. Of course, I have those moments when the run's becoming really heavy and I have to implement some more mindfulness tools, some more positive thinking. Sometimes the pain is annoying. So implementing, um, assigning pain as a trigger for gratefulness. So for example, if I feel the pain at knee and I pass already 10 or 15 or 20 kilometers, I target myself with thinking about 3 positive things that I'm grateful for. So then I'm saying, for example, I thank you that I passed already 15 kilometers. I'm grateful that the pain is actually not so much annoying. I acknowledge this pain. I accept this pain. Of course, I choose the heavy physical activity. Of course, I have a pain. And the third gratefulness, let's say, I'm grateful that I see a beautiful tree in front of me. And usually the pain release, because if you don't resist, if you don't getting angry, annoyed, and saying, "Oh, that bloody pain again," but if you assign the positive, gratefulness exercise to the pain, it usually release. Of course, after a few minutes, it may come back, but then I think again about another 3 things that I'm grateful for, and I need to find another different things, not that ones which I already said. Sometimes it's really heavy. Then I have a song which I love. My older son, which is 17 years old now, but when he was a little kid, he was watching always cartoon, the Finding Nemo,
Yeah.
and there was a little Dory, a little fish Dory, who always lost the way, and she was singing, "Just keep swimming, just keep." It's always getting me into really positive emotions, because when I was coming back from work, my son was always watching this cartoon, and then we was playing together. So then when I have a really hard time, I'm singing to myself, "Just keep running, just keep running," and it always put me in a great mood, and I'm just running. So it's a lot of mindful exercises which you can implement, and the more you train this on a daily basis, the easier is later to apply this when you really need this. When you race or when you run a really long distance and you really need this, then the brain is actually doing this automatically.
It's really interesting, man. I think this is funny because yesterday I wrote this down, because one of the areas that I'm trying to improve is just my patience. Like my fuse is too short. Like whenever it comes to trying to get things done, when things don't work quickly, I get frustrated, obviously, like all of us at times, but it's an area that I'm sick of getting frustrated at. I said to my wife, all right, I'm going to start the process. And what's so interesting, and I know this is true whether we're running or at the gym or trying to improve your patience, because I've done this in other area of my life where I've really improved an area, but the start, as you say, it's always the hardest part. Like there'll be a moment, even as I was setting up, confession time, even as I was setting up for this podcast, I'd see these curtains behind me. I couldn't get them in sync. And I I said to my wife, I've got 2 minutes until he's on. I got to straighten him. But what I noticed is that frustration that comes initially when, because patience is something that I just let go for however long. I'm like, I don't care. I'll work on it later. And now that I'm aware of it, the most difficult part is to go, all right, take a breath and start making that change. And as you say, I know in 2 weeks, if I'm consistent with it, it can start to be the foundation to actually a completely different style of living. So that's why I'm going to commit to it. But it's interesting that we're talking about this now. When I wrote down, impatience is a vehicle for transformation. I wrote that down as my little goal for the day.
Yeah.
I'm making it sound like it's a bigger issue than it is, but it's really interesting to hear you say that, because I think for people, one of the hardest steps is starting, because it's the most difficult step to take. Like that classic pushing a boulder. Once you get it moving, all right, we're on a roll. But at the start, it's just stagnant, it's stuck. How do you go with that? Because obviously, as you say, it's something that you're practicing daily. Are you using your running as the vehicle for the transformation, or is this something that you're taking steps in before your runs, after your, I guess all through your day is like a big long yoga session by the sounds of it?
And when I run, I actually meditate all the time. So if I run 5 hours, it means I'm meditating 5 hours. If I run 10 hours, means I'm meditating 10 hours. But at the beginning is great before you even go for a run, because we all live in a stressful world.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of stresses. Since we wake up in the morning, our phone is pinging, our email is coming, we have to respond, we have to get kids to the school and do the breakfast and everything. We cannot avoid the stress in life, but we can learn how to respond to the stress. And what I do before I go for a run to prepare myself is to get that mental space, even before I start running. So I don't put my body into additional stress, because our body, our mind, our emotions are already in a stressful situation. So I try to get at least 5-10 minutes sitting, standing meditation before I even go for a run, and create that mental space when I calm down, take a few deep breaths, and then I'm going for a run. I'm usually starting running by picking up some sort of the environment anchor. So it all depends in which area I'm running. I'm just targeting myself with noticing something what is not so much in this area. I usually teach people, if they running in a cities, that they can pick up orange color, because it's not something what they notice a lot, but actually there is a lot of orange colors in the environment. And to get easily into the creating space for and being into the present moment awareness is one of the simplest exercises. And between the few minutes when you start running, you can actually get into the present moment. You simply noticing the orange color. So you are focusing on the environment to notice this orange color. And then when you notice it, you are saying simply to yourself, orange, and you keep running. And the effect, the results is crazy. Between the few minutes, you see a massive body relaxation, and you feel all these tensions which is releasing inside of you, and the run is becoming really effortless. I mean, it's at least start happening in my case, and there are lots of people which are practicing what I'm saying to them. They are coming back with a similar feedback.
Yeah. It's what I think is interesting about it. And so many of the things that we're speaking about here, they're so helpful, so simple. But just like running's not really an overcomplicated sport when you know what you're doing. It's just a matter of doing the small things consistently, isn't it? And that's where the breakthroughs start to show. I really like that a lot of the areas that you're talking about, they're actually practical ways to be able to, I guess, divert your attention from the discomfort to something else, so you can develop that state of relaxation. And I really like what you were saying before about that being, I guess, the key of the meditation. I was, I can't remember where I heard this, but when I was younger, maybe it was my mum, she would often say like that which you resist persists. And it's just that classic catchphrase to encourage you to to step into whatever's causing the discomfort, or to just be able to, I guess, acknowledge it. There's a really cool children's story about a little kid who has a dragon in his room, like it's just a little tiny one, and he takes it down to his mum, and he goes, "Look, I've got a dragon." She goes, "No, you don't. Like, there's no dragon. It's not there. You don't talk to it because there's nothing there." And the next day it comes down, it's a little bit bigger, and then eventually they ignore it for so long that it grows so big it takes over the house and flies away with it. And the answer to it was the answer to keeping it small was acknowledging that it exists. And I don't know about you, but for me, the real stresses in my life, and the one I touched on briefly from a few years ago, I think were due to me just trying not to admit it, just going, "No, I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm all good, let's just keep rolling." And before I knew it, it sort of just flown away. Yeah, it's really helpful, but I also know how in the moment it can be difficult to apply. Do you feel now that it's almost second nature to you because you've been practicing it for such a long time, so consistently, you can just click into that mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite easy because I do this for quite a few years, but not every day is the same. Sometimes, something is happening, and I have these difficulties, and I keep coming back with my thoughts to the same situation, and keep repeating and keep repeating. And as I said, then I'm just acknowledging. I'm telling to myself, okay, it's no more mind. We are thinking about this. That was, I don't know, maybe some sort of the painful situation. I'm saying to my mind, look, mind, I hear you, I feel you, I know this was painful to us, but we got this. We will be healing from it. It's just a matter of time. I'm talking a lot to myself
Yeah.
when I'm running, not necessarily loud, but I'm talking a lot to myself when I'm running in my mind. When all these hard times starting, to acknowledge and accept. And usually when, as you said, when you acknowledge and accept, is just going away. If you try to resist, it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So but yeah, sometimes it's hard. Not every day we are just humans, and we just need to understand this, that some of the days we run easily 40 kilometers a day. The other day is hard to run 10 kilometers, and we have to accept that's how the life is.
Mm.
And as soon as we're fine with this, it's okay.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And now, more than just applying this to yourself through your own runs, you're actually, am I right in saying you've got an online membership, or you're working with clients
Yeah.
that are interested in this? Because I can imagine there'd be plenty of runners out there who are really jiving with what it is that you're saying. Are you able to just explain that to us a little bit? Because that sounded really interesting in
Sure.
the original emails that we were sending.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I wrote the entire book about this, about all my experiences, and the book contains the whole program and the process, how to start it and how to go through all the exercises. I also created the online program for which I reduced this now to 8 weeks, actually, because before it was 12 weeks, which was a bit too long. So I reduced this now to 8 weeks. And I also have the possibilities that people can just stay with under the membership. When they buy the program, they can have continue the membership for up to a year in the same price, and practice all the meditations. And yeah, there's plenty of workshops. It's over 120 lectures. So you can start actually from zero, from not being a runner at all, and go through the whole process and implement active meditation and mindful running into not only to running, but to any sort of the physical activities, cycling, swimming, cross fitness, whatever you do. But you can also implement all those techniques to activities such as, like, putting your clothes on, taking shower, brushing your teeth, drinking coffee, preparing food, walking, whatever is a physical activity that you have to somehow move. You can implement all those little techniques. I teach people how to start from as little as 3 minutes, few times per day. So just a bit, for me, it was really difficult at the beginning when I was trying meditation, and I was trying at the beginning the traditional sitting meditation, and even sitting for 10 minutes was really hard for me. But the active meditation was the game changer, because you don't need to separate time for this. You can implement active meditation to lots of activities which you do anyway on a daily basis, and that was for me a game changer.
It's cool that you say that. One of the things we've got a 2-year-old at our house, and we've got another one on the way in about 3 months. And I was having a chat with my wife the other day, just saying it's amazing. Like, obviously, I sound like a classic parent now. As amazing as it is, you have to learn really quick that you can't be as selfish as you used to be. Even when, and what I used to be doing wasn't necessarily selfish. It was just I had nothing else to invest my time in, like my kid. But little things like yoga practice and meditation and just a few areas, journaling, that I used to really enjoy doing has kind of taken a back seat. And I was having a chat to, as I said, my wife, but I've had this conversation with a few friends. I say I'm trying to learn to make the frustration of not being able to invest in all of those things my little meditation, just be able to get used to that. Hey, this is a season, it's a phase. And it's amazing when you actually take that present moment outlook that you're explaining and apply it, how much more enjoyable it is. It doesn't become something that you have to just sort of fight against and just keep looking at your watch, like how long till I can actually go do what I want to do. It's I'm constantly amazed how much more enjoyment comes into a situation when you're aware of what you're doing. So it makes a lot of sense, man. I'm going to link your website, your book, and everything in the show notes. But are you just doing the membership, or are you working one-on-one with clients as well?
I'm not really working one-on-one with clients, but if someone will looking to work that way, probably I will find the time for it. So people can always pop on my website and drop me an email. And if I have a time for this, we might think and we might try to arrange something.
Yeah, and that's really good, man. I've danced around this, and I just remembered it was a question I wanted to ask you because obviously when you're working with the distances that you have to be careful and deliberate with the food that you're packing. When you're out there running, are you just running with gels? Have you got drink bottles? Have you got like a little, I'm not sure what
Oh
you call it.
man,
We call it I think they call it a fanny pack in America. We call it a bum
that's
bag.
that's the nightmare with the food.
Yeah.
I'm running with a little backpack, so it's about 8-10 kilos. So I have like a shorts on me, shoes, t-shirt, and just one more of each of it in a backpack. Laptop, mobile, and you cannot really pack a lot, because I'm working after the run. So I'm not just running. No one is paying me for the fact of running. I
Mm.
have to work when I complete my runs. So I'm counting actually on the food along the way. I have some gels, I have some snacks with me. I have some hydration tablets for the water to mix with. And I'm counting that I'm gonna have the shops along the way, and
Mm.
that when I arrive to the next destination, that so there will be food there. And sometimes it's not like this. I did have a lot of issues when I was running through Vietnam for 3 months, a bit over 3,000 kilometers. There was a lot of issues to find the food along the way, and sometimes I seen the shops on a map. And I always book the hotel in the morning, and then I'm running to the next location. Sometimes I have to run 40 kilometers to hotel. Sometimes I have to run 80 kilometers to hotel, and then I have to run it. There was also massive issue which I didn't expect at all when I started running in March this year through Highland in Scotland. I was in shock that the distance between the shops was sometimes even like 100 kilometers, and also the distance between the bed and breakfast was 100 kilometers. And so and I started running through Scotland before the season, the tourist season.
Oh,
So lots of places was just closed. And I filed with the proper research because I felt confident. I did already 2 challenges with with a backpack. So I said, yeah, I'm gonna find it along the way. I'll just wake up in the morning and I'm gonna get what I need to get. And I was shocked. And I was just knocking to the doors to people, asking for water, asking for food. Sometimes I was asking for a bed if I can stay, because otherwise I'm on the middle of nowhere. And in Scotland, when I was running through Asia, you have actually lots of trees, and you can hide a bit from the heat. When I was running through Scotland, through the mountains, through the highland, it was nothing there. It was just
yeah.
me and the mountains. And even if it was raining or snowing or something, there was absolutely nothing to hide. I just have to keep running. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's challenging.
That's interesting, man. I would have guessed, as you were saying that you're doing your run through Vietnam, I would have guessed that the Vietnam run would have been much more difficult just because of the humidity and the heat. So I didn't think about the fact that you might have a little bit of tree cover. How do you go in the heat? Obviously, Poland's not necessarily known for its super hot weather, from what I understand. I know when I think of Poland,
Yeah.
I think more of a snow and overcast, a bit more London style winter weather. Do you get hot summers there, or is you
I
practicing
mean,
on your feet?
well, yeah. Like now it's really hot in Poland. The
Ah,
summers are hot, but yeah, when I was running through Asia, it was hard. Some of the days it was like
mm,
nearly 40 degrees Celsius, and I usually start running 5, 6 in the morning when it's still darkness in Asia, and I usually finish by about 12, 1, 2 o'clock. So before that, biggest heat. um, but sometimes I didn't manage, and I was still running. And what I can say, it's hard sometimes.
gee, yeah. So you're surviving on. I've been to Vietnam actually. I went to Hanoi, Da Nang. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how far down I got. I think I got to Da Nang, and that was the furthest I went. But we survived on noodle soup, or we call it pho in Melbourne. I don't know how they say it, but I can imagine in the heat, in the hot, the last thing you feel like is hot noodle soup when you finish the run.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, when I was running through Vietnam over 3 months, I did have enough of the noodle soup. By the end, I was like, oh God, no. But it's the same when I was running through Thailand for 2 months. I did have enough of egg fried rice and, rice with the chicken, rice with the eggs, rice with the vegetables, etc. So, and the thing is that, when you are when you run through tourist locations, you have whatever you want, everything is there.
Yeah.
When you run through small villages in Asia, you have what the local people have. So there is a really limited amount, not amount of the food, but really limited choice of the food.
Mm.
And you have to consider that there is not really such a thing like a food hygiene in those small villages along the way, in Asia. So sometimes it was really challenging.
Yeah, and the water over in Vietnam is hit and miss as well. You have to be careful to make sure you're getting bottled water and everything. Did you have any troubles there? You don't have to go into too many details if the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, yes,
Yeah.
and yes.
Brutal, brutal. Yeah, that's so tough. As soon as you said running through there, I thought, oh, that's a tough place to need to be hydrated when you're a
Yeah.
Westerner.
But you learn from one day to another day. You just learn. When I was running through Vietnam, I did actually dehydrate my body. Not because I was drinking the wrong water or not enough water, but because there was not enough salt in my body, because the, the the water flush out the salt from my body, and then whatever I was drinking, I was just sweating out,
Mm.
and I get dehydrated. It was pretty much danger. I almost ended up in a hospital, and actually on one evening, one morning, the doctor said to me that if I don't start eating and drinking this morning, by the end of the day, then they have to put me to the hospital, because it's just gonna start, getting really danger. So I really pushed myself to go to the market, buy some bananas, and I was trying, really pushing those bananas. and I eventually didn't go. I spent 11 days in bed. The receptionist was knocking to my doors every half an hour, 1 hour, to check if I'm still fine, if I'm still alive in
Wow,
the room.
man,
And
that's
then
tough.
after this, I was really careful what I'm drinking and what I'm eating, and there was no proper hydration products in Vietnam to buy. So I was simply mixing water with salt and sugar, and I was controlling it that way. So
Gee, man, no, that's brutal. I learned firsthand. I was in Nepal climbing through the mountains there back in 2015, and I got sick not from altitude, but from a bowl of oats. They made it with water, and the water hadn't been heated up properly. The next morning,
right.
I was supposed to be climbing a mountain, and I wasn't even getting out of my tent. It was brutal. But man, I'd love to touch base if you're keen. Midway through the big challenge, or whenever you've got something to share. So hey, whenever you're interested in coming back on and having a chat, make sure you reach out, because your adventures one, I'm super keen to follow, and yeah, I'd love to keep the conversation going.
Perfect. We will have, after a couple of months, when I start running from New York, after a couple of months, we will have the broadcasting studio with us, which will follow me in a caravan. The big challenge at 40,000 kilometers, I'm starting on my own with a backpack, but then I will have an entire team following me, so it will be easier
That would be
this
awesome.
time. And we have a lots of events along the way, so I cannot actually run on my own. So yeah, definitely we will be in touch, and we can have even few conversations along the way.
Sounds great, man. Hey, thanks for coming on. I'll see you soon. See you later, everybody.
Thank you very much.